Hi friends, welcome back. Yet another paycheck budget. I have some ideas for things that I want to film that are not paycheck budgets, but I will talk more about those at the end of this video. As usual, we are going to start with the paycheck budget that I set up in my previous video, go through what was on budget and what wasn't, and then move on to my most recent paycheck that came through this past Friday. Going to income, my paycheck was the same as usual on October 17th, $2,717.09. I also had my car insurance credit that I was expecting to come through in a previous paycheck come through, so that brought me through to a total inflow of $2,725.87. My fixed expenses were, as I expected them to be, my 2 YouTube memberships and then YouTube Premium, which I upgraded to the family plan so that my parents can use it and get ad-free as well. That ended up being more than I thought it was going to. For some reason, when I looked at it on my phone, I could have sworn it said it was $18.99 a month, but it is $22.99? $21.99, something like that. With tax, it's $24.34. So that brought my total fixed expenses in at $30.74, which was about $3 over what I budgeted, but since I had the car insurance credit, ended up still coming out ahead of what I expected, which ended up bringing me to a leftover total of $2,695.13. Coming down to variable expenses, therapy was as therapy always is, $50 for the 2 weeks. Gas ended up being $6.35 over what I had budgeted initially. This is because I had a rental from Enterprise for about 2 weeks due to my car being in the body shop having deer damage repaired, and it had a much bigger tank than my car does. So spent a bit more on gas, which brought me down to total variable expenses of $131.35. Again, $635 over my budgeted $125, and brought me down to a leftover total of $2,563.78, which is 22 cents below what I had budgeted as leftover, so really not bad. Coming up to my savings, exactly what I expected them to be. I ended up not putting anything extra towards my emergency fund for reasons I will discuss shortly. So that brought me down to a total of $955 and leftovers of $1,608.78. And then my debt payments were also what I expected them to be, total of $1,372, which brought me down to a leftover total of $236.78. Now, why did I not put anything extra into my emergency fund? Well, I ended up going over budget on things that are not included in here. Namely, I had to have my inhaler prescription refilled. I am not on your standard albuterol. It gives me rapid heart rate when I take it, so I had to switch to levoalbuterol, which is just the other-handed version of that particular compound. For the non-chemists here, that doesn't mean anything to you, but I did originally want to be a chemistry major in college, so I did take OChem. So when my doctor explained it to me, it did actually make perfect sense, but most insurance companies don't love to cover it. They go to my doctor to get clear reasons for why I need that instead of standard albuterol, so it also ends up costing more, so that was about $42. Then it was also my mother's birthday. I bought dinner for that, which ended up coming out to about $100 after tip. I don't regret doing it. It was functionally my birthday gift to her, but that did end up eating budget that I did not really have. Obviously, between those two things, that brings me down to about $90 remaining in my checking account, which was not the thing that I wanted to have happen, but it is what it is, and I really should have planned for her birthday better. I used to set aside like $25 per paycheck for gifts and birthday dinners and things like that, which I have not been doing. Maybe next year I will start doing that again, but the important thing is I didn't end up with an overdraft in my checking account, so we're just going to go with that for right now. I'm also still waiting for the car rental to post to my credit card so that I can pay that off. That will come out of my car maintenance account, which I put money into every paycheck, so it's not like I have to worry about cash flowing that. But I ended up having the rental for, again, about 2 weeks because it took forever for the headlight replacement to come in, and the one that they got in initially was broken. So I had to wait for them to get another one in, and it ended up taking about twice as long as the 6 days they had originally told me it would be. So because I pay for the damage waiver on the rental, that's $20 a day. So I'm probably looking at about $250 in that, which is unfortunate, but I needed a car, so it is what it is. Hopefully that'll post tomorrow. I am filming this on Sunday the 2nd, so it's been pending since Thursday when I returned the car. And I would think that it should post tomorrow. They did call me on Friday to make sure that everything was good, and no one said anything about me not getting back the $50 security deposit, which will really just end up being credited towards my actual fee for the period of time I had it. But we shall see what that ends up being. Now on to the next bit, which is my most recent paycheck. I am putting this in November because my paycheck date was Halloween, which effectively makes it a November paycheck because basically all of the expenses are November expenses. I budgeted to have my usual paycheck total come in, but that is not what actually happened because October was a 3 paycheck month for me, and all of my benefits are split, assuming that there's 24 pay periods in the year out of the 26. So the 2 months that are 3 paychecks, my health insurance and such don't come out of my paycheck. So my actual paycheck total for the 31st was $2,871.76, so about $155 more than my usual paycheck. And unfortunately, I don't get to do anything fun with that for reasons that I will explain momentarily after we go through the usual things. There's a lot of fixed expenses that hit with this paycheck just because of the timing. Everything that hits at the beginning of the month is coming out of this one, so that's not a thing anymore. I have rough budgets for every paycheck going out through next July, so I'm actually looking at the one that I did about a month ago for this pay period. But since I canceled my Hulu, that is not in this one anymore. But it is in the one that I did up before. So there's a lot of stuff that technically hit yesterday. Comes out on the 3rd, not the 1st. That comes out on the 3rd. This comes out the 4th, 9th, and 11th. Oh hey, 11/11. That is painfully millennial of me, and I am sorry. My rent already came out, so we're going to fill that in. My storage unit also already came out, so we are going to fill that in. Storage unit's always about $3 below what I budget. Google also came out, but I need to look at the credit card that hits. Patreon came out. I do really need to start actually trying to sell things that I have the Google website for. But I need to be a little less stressed out and panicking for that to happen, because doing art takes a shocking amount of psychological well-being, at least at this point. It didn't when I was a teenager, but now that I'm an adult, I have to actually do math here. Welcome to the graphing calculator that I have had since high school that I am not getting rid of because this thing is worth its weight in gold. And it is... How old am I now? This thing's 15 years old. I got it in 2010. You can see it has a little damage mark on the screen, but that's okay. Alright, so my total on this is $914 budgeted, which brings us to a leftover total of $1,803 from the budget. Variable expenses, as per usual, therapy $50 and $75 for gas. $725 total, which brings us down to budgeted leftovers of $1678. Usual for savings, except for something that I am going to tell you about now. I am budgeting what I usually budget for this because it's just easier if I do that. So that's a budgeted total of $955, which I know before I even fill this in. $680 to the horse account, $75 to the car maintenance, which is obviously getting wiped as soon as I get the bill from Enterprise, $100 to car insurance, $50 to my cats, and $50 to my emergency fund, which brings us down to a leftover total of $723, except this is not going to actually be what I end up setting aside. It is not what I have set aside. I automate all of my savings, so all of this has already come out. And the deviation here is that I am putting basically all of my extra money out of this paycheck into the horse account because our vet was just here this weekend and I had to have x-rays taken of my horse's hind feet, which is an annual thing. I don't want to get into the specifics of why we do that because it doesn't matter to anybody except the horse people. But had to do that and also had to have blood drawn to test his vitamin E levels, which has to do with his feet and also some just physical comfort things. But the blood work itself is around $300 for the vitamin E, so that extra money is coming out of here. Most months I would have been completely fine, but because of the fact that all of his supplements have hit or are hitting in the span of 6 weeks, I have one left that is going to hit at the end of next week. That ate through basically everything in his bank account, so this extra money is going there. This is one of those things where in the long run, this is going to save me money because what we're doing is checking for things that caused very expensive problems previously, and the $200 for the feet films and the $300 for the blood work is vastly cheaper than the thousands of dollars that I have spent on corrective veterinary work over the last 6 years. So don't regret doing it, but it does mean that I don't get to put that extra money towards a credit card. With all of that being said, we come down to debt. The only credit card payment that is coming out of this paycheck is my bank Visa to the tune of $595, as always. Which brings us down to a total leftover budgeted of $128. Now, I have basically already eaten through this because I had to go to the Apple store and get my left AirPod replaced this morning because it suddenly stopped working and I refused to buy an entirely new set. It was out of warranty, so it did cost me $75, but the case works fine. The other one isn't really showing any signs of the battery being anywhere close to dying in any significant way, so I really did not want to replace them. But that did cost money, and actually I should probably just put that on here. We're not budgeting for it, we're just gonna put it in the actuals. And that actual total was, well, I guess technically it's more like $74, $73.83. And yeah, that is this paycheck. Again, really need to stay on budget here for the next pay period because after that comes out, I'm down to basically $50-ish left over and did not have much cushion on my previous budget. So we're looking at about $140 in my bank account when all this is said and done, which I hate. It feels like every time I start getting anywhere with anything, I just get hit by something else. In this case, literally a deer, but sometimes it's non-physical collisions that still suck. That is what it is, but sometimes it's, hard to keep the motivation. But we are going to power on because my mock budgets for the next however many paychecks do have a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So I have had multiple statements closed since the last time I filmed. All of them except for my Chase, actually. I have updates on 3 of the 4 that I want to give you. There really isn't anything to update on my highest balance Discover because, as I have mentioned before, I really only reduced that balance by $30 to $50 per payment that I make, so it is taking a really long time to make a dent in that one. But I have made a dent in some other things, so we're going to try to end this on a high note by talking about those. We're going to start with my bank Visa. Starting balance was $22,690.84 in my debt confession video. Since I filmed that as of the most recent statement date, which was the 30th, and this is just a side tangent, but this card drives me slightly nuts because it does not close on the same day every month. Some months it is the 29th, some months it's the 30th, some months it's the 31st. If it's February, it's the 28th. I don't know. So that makes it really hard to do the interest calculations because it is not actually clear to me how they decide that. I just have to go with it. Don't love that, but I digress. My overall balance since I filmed my debt confession video has decreased by $656.86, which is 2.89% of the total balance, which makes it sound very sad. But that is still $650-ish that I no longer owe. And my total remaining balance now is $22,033.98, which also means that we get to color in another star. Still only one, but as you can see here, each star equals $226.91. So basically every time I make a payment, I am coloring one of these in. My total interest on my most recent statement for this card was $355.87, so about $240 per payment is going towards principal, so obviously over this, and over time that will continue to increase. So that is that one. Only 1 star, but we like coloring stars in. It means we're doing things. Next we have my credit union Visa, which is down $468.01 from when I made my debt confession video, which is 16.94% of the overall balance. So from a percentage perspective, much bigger dent. And my balance as of my most recent statement date, which was the 31st, is $2,294.77, which means that we get to color in another star because I did not make any extra payments towards this time. But again, almost 17% of this balance is gone. And that was 17, not 7D. I did not enunciate very well there. Next up, we have my highest interest rate card, which is down $408.58 from when I made my debt confession video, which is 7.07% of the starting balance. And that remaining balance is now $5,371.99. I am just now realizing that I did not color in a star on here that I should have colored in, so we are going to do that too, and I am going to do it in a different color because I like to switch off so that I can see how much I did in one payment. So apparently I missed this one. I color code them in my Excel too, in the exact same way. So that is previous payment that I made, previous statement period, and we get to color in 4 whole stars for October because I made multiple extra payments last month because my actual minimum payment only eats through about $15 to $30 of the overall balance. So every time I make an extra $50 or $100 payment, it is a big dent in this one. I had hoped that I was going to be able to make an extra payment out of this paycheck, but that is obviously not happening, and that is okay. We will catch back up on it next time. So that is that card. Now, last but most certainly not least, we have my payoff tracker for my overall credit card balance. Since I made my debt confession video back in August, I have paid off $1,738.31 of my overall balance, which is 2.34%, which brings me to a remaining total of $72,516.95 as of my October statement dates. I emphasize October statement dates because when my Chase closes this week, it should be over $2,000 that I have paid off. But I don't want to give totals without that statement amount because my interest is not always calculated to exactly what I rough calc it to be. Because of this reduction, this means we get to color another star in, which again, not huge progress, but when I look at it in terms of actual dollar totals, the fact that I managed to pay off close to $2,000 in the span of really 2 months, I consider that to be a really big win, and I am proud of myself for that, and I'm going to give myself credit for it. Another fun thing to report is that the total interest that I paid for October was $1,292.97, which is about $60 less than I paid in interest in September, which annualized out is $720 a year. It should not be that much longer until the amount that I have saved in interest annualizes out to $1,000 a year. That doesn't seem like much on a monthly basis, but annualized out, that is $720 more that I'm reducing my overall balance, or $1,000 more that I'm reducing my overall balance. And it helps me stay motivated to look at it that way. So I am happy to report that. I will be even happier when we get to the point where I am under $1,000 a month in interest. Because I really feel like that is when things are going to start to snowball, not to use one of the classic debt payoff terms. But to bring us all the way back around, some general updates that I have that just feel pertinent to all of this. I found out in the last couple of weeks that my office is moving from our current location down into the city, which many people are very excited about. I am not thrilled about it because it is going to quadruple my commute from 10 minutes to at least 40, probably more like 45 to 50. It is also going to increase my gas budget by probably a third every 2 weeks. But my company is at least paying for my lease in the parking garage at our new building, so that will be very helpful. I used to work literally 3 blocks down the street from where we are moving, and that was almost 10 years ago, and parking was $15 a day then. And I did have to pay that, so it will be nice to not be on the hook for it. I'm also, beginning with when we move, going to start probably budgeting about $10 per paycheck for caffeine. Not actually because I need to pay for caffeine, but because this move puts me within walking distance of a coffee shop that is managed by a very good friend of mine from college. I used to basically live in the store that she managed then. I have not been able to see her regularly since I graduated, basically, so I'm really looking forward to being able to go see her and, spending $5 once a week to go yap with her for 20 to 30 minutes will be really nice, and I think is a worthwhile investment. And I really do have the space in most of my future paychecks to be able to do that. Plus, I just love a good chai latte. This move also changes the area where I will be able to look for houses. Previously, I thought I was going to be able to go further south, but with where the office is located, it makes more sense for me to stay more north. So that will limit my pool of selection by a fairly reasonable amount, but it is not changing the rough timeline that I have in my head for when I'm going to start looking. I will state for the record now, I am not waiting until I pay off all of my credit cards to start looking, because I will be here forever if I do that, and I really need to move out of my parents' house for a whole host of reasons. Most of which have nothing to do with them. It's more to do with the fact that I'm almost 30 and really don't want to be here forever so that I can move on to other things in my life. But it's definitely not happening next year. I will at least say that. It will happen when my credit card payments reach a point where I can switch to paying a mortgage without having it be a huge swing to do it. I also have ideas for some videos that I want to film that are not paycheck budgets. One of them is a discussion of my experience being laid off last year. It's a slightly different perspective than many of the layoff videos that I see people make, and I just want to talk about it because it adds context to why I'm here, and also I think is an experience that many of us can relate to in unfortunate ways, but it's something I want to share, so that will be coming soon. I also want to film a video making a 2026 financial bingo board, but I am currently 7 squares short, so if anyone has any ideas, please drop them in the comments. It's okay for them to be a reach, but I want them to be at least moderately attainable. So for example, we are not putting buy a house on next year's bingo card because that is just not going to happen. But I do have some goals that I've already come up with for like credit card payoff stuff and savings goals that are, again, a little bit of a reach, but definitely doable if I get my shit together in other areas. So again, if you have any ideas, drop them in the comments. If there's something that I haven't come up with and they seem like they would fit, then I will add them to the list and we will fill out a bingo board together. And then last but most certainly not least, if you live in the United States, consider this your reminder to go vote on Tuesday. It is an off-cycle election. Most places do not have major things on the ballot, at least from my understanding. I happen to live in a state where we do actually have some very important races that need to be voted on. So I will be going and doing my civic duty as I have done in every election cycle since I registered to vote in college. And if you are able to vote, eligible, registered, I would heavily encourage you to do so. I know that it can feel like it doesn't matter, but particularly on the local level, it has a huge impact, and there are stories every year of places where the margin of votes was 100 or less. So it's an important muscle to exercise, particularly in our current political climate. I know some people like to doom about us not having elections anymore, and I understand the impulse to do that, and I feel it sometimes, but the way that we make that happen faster is by not voting when we can. So if you are seeing this on or before Tuesday, November 4th, please go vote. I will be doing so, and I hope you will too. But that is it for me in this video. The next one probably will be my layoff story if I can get that filmed and edited for next week so that I can be on a weekly cadence for probably 3 weeks, but we're going to go with it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.